A copy of the recording?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so glad that you're here. This is a good day to be home if you're in Seattle and just sit and enjoy. I'm especially happy to have as our guest today Edwina Martin-Arnold. We were chatting before we began our program, and I reminded her that I met her at her house. She was having a book reading for her first book. A Black romance. There are people who had never heard of a Black romance, but many of us filled her there, spacious, beautiful home. And that was just the beginning of something wonderful. I think now there must be, what are there, 11 books? I think she's written 11 books, but
Sounds about right.
What?
Sounds
What?
about right.
Okay, all right. Look, she doesn't even know anymore. But I love the fact that she told me that she's a hopeless romantic. I don't know any of those these days, so I'm glad to know you. But she believes in happily ever after. And I do know a few people that I think belong in that category. And from having met her husband, I think she has a reason to say that. And I'm glad about that. But she says, and I want to read this because I want to get it right. However, Edwina knows that the path to real love is rarely straightforward. Can I get a witness out there? To the contrary, it's often paved with many turns and a peril or two in real life and in the stories she creates. When Edwina isn't daydreaming about love, she's using her law degree to fight for civil rights or coaching basketball. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is somebody who knows that life is a mosaic. There are all of these different parts of it, and we want to be healthy in all of these different aspects. So, without further ado, I present to you Edwina Martin Arnold in her own way.
Thank you very much. And I have to tell you, I'm really ecstatic to be here because, as Georgia alluded to, I've been writing since the late '90s, and I have been looking for networking and opportunities just to be with other writers. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to have some writers groups, but people move or blah, blah, blah. So when Georgia told me this existed, I was absolutely thrilled. So I not only want to present today, I would like to be a part of the group because, this is what I've been looking for since I began writing. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I met my husband June 4th. We celebrated our 33rd wedding anniversary. But I met my husband 2 weeks before I graduated from college. Got married. I was at the University of Washington. Got married and I got a job at Boeing. I was a buyer. And every Sunday night I would cry. And my husband would say, "I'm tired of you crying. What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I want to be an attorney." He said, "Well, then we're going to be an attorney." So I didn't have the self-confidence at first. And so he researched, found out what I needed to do, signed me up for a preparatory course for the law exam, took the preparatory course. Then I went to go take the test. And the test is like 3 hours. I can't remember. And they give you a break. So I went outside the room to go to the bathroom and he was there with a sandwich and stuff. And so he was extremely supportive. And so when I did well on that test, I started to have confidence and do things on my own. And so went to law school, went to the University of Puget Sound. Seattle U bought my law school, which is the strangest thing on earth to me. So, I'm a Catholic. So I said, okay, I could be a Seattle U grad. So got a job as a prosecutor. And so started prosecuting, had a couple more kids. And both of my husband, I call him a serial entrepreneur. Once the company gets going, he doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. So, we were both on the fast track and, one of us really needed to slow up or somebody else would be raising our kids. And so I decided to slow up and come home and take care of the kids. But I quickly discovered I'm not a homeroom mom. I love my kids, but I don't want to be around 20 or 30 of them. And so when my husband came home, I was talking to him like he was a kid. He's like, Edwina, I'm not a kid. And so we quickly discovered I needed something else to do besides be a mother. And so my husband took the kids to daycare every Monday, and I got to write. I decided, I had read romance books all my life. My older sister, we shared a room, and she would read me romance books, Harlequins, to fall asleep. And so I started writing, and I wasn't writing to be published. I was writing because it was healthy for me. It made me feel good, more than a hobby, more like a passion. I'd always written just short stories and stuff. And so after a year of this, I had 167 pages, and I let my family read it. And I'll never forget what my brother said. He said, Edwina, this is a really great book. What did he say? Edwina, this is a really great book if you're writing a legal thesis, which isn't what you want in a romance book. So I had to de-lawyerize myself in my writing. And I'm self-taught. If somebody told me I had to go to school to learn how to write, I would have pulled out my hair, ran screaming, yelling the other way. I learned from dissecting the books that I enjoyed. I figured everything has a formula, and you just have to figure out that formula. Everybody knows they're going to fall in love at the end of the romance book. It's happy ending, it's escapism, but it's how you get there. So I dissected the books. I also dissected the books that I didn't like, the writing style, to figure out why I didn't like it. So anyway, then I started to see the Black romances in the grocery stores, like the late 90s, I think. And I was like, hey, I got a Black romance. And so I went through this journey. It was a 3-year project. First, it took me a year to get a first draft, another year of cleaning it up. Then it took a year to get published. So back in that time, you had 2 houses. You had BET and you had Genesis Press. Those were the 2 houses that were putting out Black books. So Genesis Press made me an offer, a 2-book deal. And so my first book that Georgia refers to is Eve's Prescription, back in 2001, I believe. And then I had Jolie's Surrender, came out in 2003, I think. And then I got a deal with BET. Actually, BET offered to publish Eve's Prescription. And I said, well, you're a couple of years too late, but I have some other ideas. And so I got a deal with BET. And then Harlequin bought Arabesque. So guess what? I was a Harlequin writer. So, so my sister was overjoyed. I mean, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Same week I found out I had a Harlequin deal. I found out that my sister's cancer was terminal. And so my mother would go, she lived in San Diego. So my mother would go for 3 weeks and I would go for 1 week until she passed. She passed about 4 months before the book came out. And let me grab the book. Where's House Guest? Okay. So she passed about 4 months before the book comes out. And when you're published with the houses, you don't have a lot of input. If they want you to change something, you change something. But they do give you a lot of input in the cover. And so they called and said, what do you want on the cover? I was like, look, I don't care what you put on the cover. So this is the cover of House Guest, and the woman looks just like my sister. So I figured it was the Lord smiling down saying, I really approve of this book. So after House Guest, every time I sat down to write, I remember my sister and I'd want to cry. So I slowly stopped writing. I got a few more things out, some short stories. I self-published at that time Chocolate Friday because the book was so near and dear to my heart. I didn't want an editor to change it. And it didn't fit the typical romance formula. And I wrote it in first person. So all of those things, I said, let me self-publish this and see how that's done. But anyway, I stopped writing. And then about 3 years ago, I started dreaming of my sister. And she was saying, get over it and start writing. Come on, start writing again. So I did. I wrote the sequel to House Guest. And it was my second book in the 2-book deal for Harlequin, and I sent it to them. I said, just a little late. So I sent it to them 14 years later. And the flattering thing is they remembered who I was. They said, if you want to change this, that, and the other, our genre is a little different now than it was when you wrote House Guest. If you want to change this, that, and the other, we will publish it for you. And so then I just started playing around because the whole publishing industry had changed, in between when I first started publishing to now. And so I said, let me go see what Amazon's doing. So I was playing around with Amazon and I was able to publish it myself in a week. So some of the benefits, complete creative control. Harlequin, I got 8 cents a book for this, but I got a lot of money because Harlequin's all over the world, right? But I was getting 8 cents a book. Self-publishing with Amazon, I can get $2 and up for a book. But you know, you got to do your own hustle when you're self-publishing. With Amazon, you could just sit back and relax, except for the editors driving you nuts, because they put it into competitions for you. They just, my book was in different languages. So just kind of the benefits and the, I mean, both are beneficial. And I have to admit, if I was relying on this to eat, I would probably go with Harlequin. But I really, really, really like the creative control that I have now with the other books. So what I did, you know, this is a Harlequin book, and I had written the sequel to it, Twice Tempted, that did quite well. But I was like, well, why keep writing on that sequel when I don't have control of the first book, right? I didn't want to ask Harlequin for my rights back because I kind of like saying I'm a Harlequin writer. So I said, it makes no sense for me to keep writing sequels to that book. So I updated Chocolate Friday, and I decided to go with the Chocolate Romance series. It's a great, great decision. So we have Chocolate Friday, then we have Vanilla Chocolate, where it's my first interracial. It is a Black woman with a white man. And I love Black women. So all of my books will have the heroine be a Black woman. But, you know, I'm going to play around with the men a little bit. So, and then this book is Chocolate Drop, the 3rd book in the series that was just released. And Chocolate Drop is, again, a Black woman with a Samoan man. Mm. So for Chocolate Drop, I had a completely different idea. She was going to be a basketball player, and she was going to go over to Spain and be playing basketball. And she was going to have a love interest who was a descendant from the Moors. You know, the Moors ruled the lower half of Spain for 800 years. And he's going to appear white, but he considers himself to be more African. And so I was going to explore that whole history. I had a great idea, which I will still use eventually. But I couldn't ignore all this stuff going on with COVID. So in this book now, the heroine is an emergency room doctor, and the hero is the head of the morgue. And so their romance begins right before COVID hits. And so, and I have to tell you, this book is being very, 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 very well received. So I write romance books pretty much centered. They make, like in Vanilla Chocolate, we go to France, but we end up back in Seattle and Leavenworth of all places. But I really enjoy bringing Seattle and the Northwest area, bringing our rich, vibrant history. Because when I was younger and I would pick up a book about Seattle, or a love story or whatever, if it had Seattle in it, I was reading about Scandinavians up north or Norwegians, or, you know, I wasn't reading my view of Seattle. So I have a lot of fun with it. This is Jolie Surrender, my second book, where I play around with the rivalry between Rainier Beach and Garfield. They're fictional places in the book, but you know, I really love the fact that I bring some of our rich history out to the world. So that's kind of where I come from. A little bit about me. Just a couple other things. I'm the head basketball coach for Rainier Beach girls basketball, which I'm very, very excited about. And I work at DSHS. I'm their chief of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So that's what I do when I'm not writing. Any questions, or you guys want me to dive into a reading?
You're muted, Dr. McDade.
I said we want you to read. I love that history. I love that.
You want me to read?
Okay, I wanted to ask you one question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you were comparing Amazon with Horizon. So are you saying that to be published by Amazon, you keep most of your rights as far as a writer, or you work with them, but you have more control? Or is that what you're saying?
I'm self-publishing, so I have complete control.
Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, so
There's some
What part
delay,
does Amazon
Miss
play
Helen.
in that?
There's some delay, so
arena?
if it might be the
Okay.
bandwidth, so we might need to turn some of our cameras
Uh-huh.
temporarily. Miss Helen, can you ask your question? There's some delay for your feed.
Well, I think Miss Helen was asking me.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I think
Oh.
you were asking me if I have complete control of the book
I just asked.
with Amazon.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
And what part does Amazon play in your yes? And what part do Amazon play? What do
Oh my gosh, they
for you
oh, they do the book
in the promotion of your book?
No, that is all me. That is all.
Really?
So they produce an ebook. Of course, they give you all the tools you need to create these things. So they give you the tools that you need to create an electronic book and a print book. And their Chocolate series is also available in audio. So the tools for the ebook and the print book are free. So you just do it and voila. I paid $12 for the stock cover. I bought the stock cover and then they give you the tools to develop the cover. So I did everything on my own. And then Amazon produces the print book, right? And they send it to people. Yeah, so the audiobook's a little different. So
what?
If I had wanted to read the book myself.
Never heard of that.
Oh, yeah. If I had wanted to read the book myself, it would have been free, but I just didn't have that kind of time. So I did pay to a person to read the book, to make it an audio book. So, and it was, it can go anywhere from $50 an hour for the book.
Was it a person you knew or?
I just had people audition and I picked one.
Okay, I'm Marianne, you have a question?
Okay.
Because I really want you guys to hear her reading and then we can do the questions.
Yeah, I mean,
That
and
sounds good.
I'm joining the group, so I can help you with self-publishing if that's what you're interested in.
Well, she asked me.
Yes, I thank you so much, Edwina and everyone. Yeah, I'd love to hear your reading, and I definitely would love to have you come back and share more about publishing versus self-publishing versus other. But I'll put any questions in the chat, and let's hear some of your work.
Okay, so I'm going to read to you from Chocolate Friday, the first book in the series. Okay. So I have to tell you a little bit about Chocolate Friday. My readership wanted more sex scenes. So the formula back when I was writing for the houses was you have 2.5 sex scenes. You have 2 where they get to get it on, and you get 1 where you just frustrate the reader. You only get halfway there. So, and I did not want to write erotica. I'll read erotica all day long, but I just don't want to write it. And so it doesn't bring me joy to write. So I was thinking, how can I have more sex scenes and it not be erotica? And I think the readers wanted more sex scenes because I build a love story between the characters. And each sex scene is different in the books because it's based on how I see the characters. So anyway, so I decided the only way that I could have more love scenes was if I created a character who was a sexual innocent. And so you get to go through all of these wonderful experiences with her. So that is Olivia, the heroine in this book. And she was not raped. So that, but she does have an incident in her past that has made her stay away from romantic relationships. But she realizes that she wants what her parents had, a loving relationship. She doesn't want to grow old by herself. So she puts herself in counseling, takes some steps. And so she reaches some milestones, and her best friend says, okay, well, now you've reached some milestones. It's time for you to go to Chocolate Friday. And Chocolate Friday was a real event 20 years ago. It was a all male review where the men were all chocolate. It was a strip club. And so, and it happened on the first Friday of every month. And so I was sitting in Chocolate Friday thinking, I wonder how a person who is sexually repressed would take this. So what I'm going to read to you is the scene where Olivia is at Chocolate Friday. You'll hear some other names. If you don't hear the name Olivia, it's her friends. And you know what? I can't remember all the characters' names in my books. Old age. Somehow Cass has us right up front. She looks at my amazed face and confesses that she made a reservation. After we sit, I look up and take in how close we are to the elevated stage. I'm right under the pole. Jeannie leans over and whispers, we're in prime position, girl. You know what that pole is for, don't you? No. Sliding bodies. Oh. I stare at the pole and my active imagination has me rushing to the bar. Cass knows me better than I know myself, it seems. She knew I would need firewater to bolster my courage. I return to the table with a bottle of Merlot and 3 glasses. The lighting dims and the ladies of En Vogue begin singing. What a man, what a man, what a really good band. I sip wine and watch the giggling, chattering women find their seats. The mood is definitely festive. After about 15 minutes, a handsome light brown man in a tuxedo steps on stage with a microphone and yells, ladies, welcome to your Chocolate Friday. Then the song It's Raining Men blasts from the speakers, making me jump and spill a little of my wine. I grab a napkin and dab at the table. Cass, who's sitting across from me, reaches out and grabs my wine glass with one hand and points to the stage with the other. I look up and almost fall out my chair. Men crowd the platform, pumping and thrusting in various costumes. The guy with the microphone is yelling out names. Jared, Tito, Chocolate Wonder, PJ, Disco Pete, and Dirty South are here to strut their stuff for you ladies. And at the end of the night, I have a special surprise. The women go wild, whipped up into a hormonal frenzy with just a hint of what they were about to see. I don't know if I should watch them or the men. My decision is quickly made when the other males disappear and the zoot-suited Tito begins grooving to Mambo number 5. I watch, somewhere between mesmerized and horrified, as the man strips down to his G-string and has a couple of glow-arounds literally with the pole. The body and antics are definitely worth looking at, but it all seems absurd somehow. Tito is now among the crowd simulating sex acts with anyone who waves $1. As he and one woman become particularly physical, I look around and see several women giggling. I start laughing myself. Jeannie leans over and yells, what's so funny? I don't know. It's like this is surreal, like I'm watching a play and everyone here knows their part. Jeannie nods. The whole thing is just for fun. Relax and enjoy it. We both pause as Tito brushes by on his way to a beckoning dollar. The evening progresses much the same. Cass has bought another bottle of wine and I've had more than my fair share. I'm about to call it a night and go test the hotel's advertised heavenly bed. I stretch across and tap Cass's arm. Your experiment has failed. The MC is talking and she can't hear me. I decide to wait until he's done and I find myself listening to him. Ladies, I have saved the best for last. Technically, this performer has retired, but I was able to coax him back just for you. The man who needs no introduction, appearing one final time. Ladies, say hello to the only spice you need, Flavor, the thug stripper. The women go nuts. An elbow to my head momentarily distracts me. Sorry, the woman at the next table yells, then continues jumping up and down. My attention returns to the stage to see a pair of male hips rotating a perfectly shaped bottom as a female rapper screams from the speakers that she needs a roughneck. The sight robs me of thought. The man moves around the stage in a slow bop until he's facing the crowd. He's wearing an open jean jacket with no shirt underneath, and his pants hang low on his hips, exposing black boxers. His attitude is hard and his disposition is lazy, a real bad boy persona, complete with little gold hoop earrings in each ear. He saunters to the edge of the stage and scans the women slowly. His eyelashes are impossibly long and his eyes are round and serious. It seems as if he hesitates briefly on me. I know it has to be my imagination. My, Jeannie says close to my ear. I think you like what you see and maybe vice versa, huh? I look at Jeannie. Her words barely register and it doesn't matter anyway because I'm too speechless to respond. The magnetic man on the stage draws me back to the platform. He's taking off his jacket now. His chest could have been sculpted from onyx. The muscles are dense, defined, and gleaming in the stage lights. As if to emphasize this, he raises a hand and runs it across his cleanly shaven head. The women scream in delight as he does a little jig with his abdominal muscles, all 6 of them. With a quick hand jerk, his pants are unbuttoned, and with well-practiced ease, he removes them. My body jerks to life. I know this because I feel itchy all over, and wiggling in my chair does nothing to relieve the tingling sensation, so like a sleeping limb coming awake. A flash of hard thigh causes my heart to thump. I scoot in my seat, heat spreading from my hips outwards, and suddenly I feel lightheaded. I close my eyes. It's too much. Something about this man's moves are moving me. I feel his raw sexuality like a blast of hot lava straight from inner earth. When I open my eyes, he's off the stage and working the crowd. I'm scandalized because a woman is putting $1 in his G-string and taking a long lick across his abdomen at the same time. It's not the first time I've seen this done tonight, but now my gut knots. Am I jealous? The idea is so preposterous, I want to slap myself. Then I realize I'm not jealous. I just want to be in that woman's place. The thought shocks me into looking up, and my eyes collide with Flavors as he gently disentangles himself from the mad liquor. He moves closer to my table, and my heart rate increases at a speed that seems to be in direct proportion to how near he's getting. He passes, waving money, ignores slaps to his bottom, and seems to be headed right for me. I'm confused until I turn to see Cassandra fluttering several bills over my head. I stand up to stop her, but it's too late. He traps me between my chair and his intoxicating male flesh. I collapse back in the seat and whisper, "Good Lord," and gulp the rest of Jeannie's wine. My glass is empty. I hear this deep rumbling. Flavor is chuckling. And I digest the fact that he must have heard me. I don't want to look up, but his gyrating torso is making something in my stomach churn. I peek at his face and get lost in the most adorable dimples. They transform him from bad boy to charming man. Cassandra thrusts money in my hands and yells, "Do it!" I glance around, discovering that we have quite a crowd, many of which are clutching their own bills, waiting for a chance with the Spice King. The other women begin chanting, "Do it, do it, do it." I'm having trouble controlling the rhythm of my breathing as I inch the money closer. There's only one place to put it, the waistband of his G-string. If he would just stop moving, I could do this. As it is, the way his sizable stuff is bobbing, I don't think I can achieve the task without coming into contact with it. Surprisingly, I'm not repulsed by the idea. In fact, I'm downright interested. Too damn interested. Dang it, why does Cass have to be right? My lids lower, closing my eyes, and I put the money in quickly. When I feel my French manicured nails dig into his flesh, my lids fly back up. I pull my hand away like I've been burned. He lowers down, and I'm enveloped in sheer heat as he hugs my stiff body and whispers, "Ouch." So she's an English professor, and Flavor ends up in her class. So that's Chocolate Friday.
That is too much fun. Oh my gosh, I was there. I was a Chippendales person when I back in LA in my early 20s. So I'm feeling that. Thank you, Lee. Nice writing.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
That could be a book. Okay, questions. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Another one. Do we want to hear from another? We want to know more.
That was kind of long. I know some of you want the opportunity to read too, so I don't want to take up all your time.
Oh no, we usually we start at 3. So if you want to read some more or ask questions, whatever.
It's up to you guys. How about we take the questions and then if there's time, read some more. How does that sound?
I want to know how much of that is your real first person experience versus the character in the book's first person experience.
Well, so I was imagining what would a sexual innocent think. So it's not my experience because I have no problem putting the money down the street. I'd probably be one of the ones, I'm not gonna lick somebody's stomach, but I'd probably be one of the ones jumping up and down with the dollar. So
very good. It was wonderful. Thank
you. Thank you. And I see the chat. Yeah. I don't know if someone is monitoring the chat.
That was extraordinary.
I'm checking the chat real quick to see.
This is Marianne. I do have a question for you. Just you know, you were sharing a little bit about self-published and working with publishers, and I'm wondering, and you had these great opportunities with various, various labels, if you will, or publishers at the beginning. And I'm just wondering if you have any lessons learned on working with publishers if you wanted to go that route, and you know how to approach them, what they're looking for. You gave some really good things, and also I really admire that you are still a Harlequin writer. You're working both sides of the coin, depending on the book, how much control you want over it, and so on. So I think that's a lesson learned, that you don't have to just give your life away to a publisher. You can do self-published and publishing with somebody else too. So anyways, lessons learned and any other comments? Thank you.
Well, so my information, I believe, is still correct, but I think the last time I was published by the houses was 2005 or 2006. So things may have changed, but back then, number one, it took a long time. Well, one of the neat things about romance is that you didn't have to have an agent. You could just, you can go to Harlequin and see what their submission requirements are. And so then you just follow those submission requirements. And that's what I did. I did that for Genesis Press, for BET, for Harlequin. I just followed what their submission guidelines were. I did have an agent at one time. I had an agent for about 3 years, which is also helpful because the agent does all of the pounding. You know, the agent shops your books to the different houses. But the great thing about romance is that you do not have to have an agent. You just follow the submission requirements. But it takes a long time. I mean, with Genesis Press, I followed their submission requirements. Like 6 months later, they said, send me the whole book. I sent them the whole book. Then I waited another 6 months. And then they said, hey, we want to publish it. And as I told you, BET, it took them 3 years to get around to my little submission. And they wanted to publish each prescription that had already been published for a year. So going with the houses is a long process. And then once you, like Jolie Surrender, you know, I love basketball. And I told you it was the rivalry between Rainier Beach and Garfield. So I had a whole bunch of basketball in this book. And my editor took out 80% of it. And I said, this is some really good writing. It builds up, blah, blah, blah. She's like, Edwina, no romance reader wants to read all that basketball. That was her. I said, yes, they do. That was her response. But you have to do what your editor says. You have to do what your editor says or your book's not going to get published. You don't have to do it. They just say, I'm not going to publish it. So with the editors, I really had to put your book is your baby. You know, you spend a lot of time and effort, and then somebody's telling you something's not quite right with your baby. And then we're going to change your baby. There are books, you know, I didn't read them afterwards because so much had been changed. I wanted to get it published. I wanted to get it out there, but it didn't feel like my baby anymore. It felt like an altered version of my baby. So that's why when I had the choice, you know, I went the self-publishing route, because here you're getting me. You're getting the only person editing it is me, or I have grammar edits. You know, there's two types of edits. There's the content edit and then the grammar edit. So for the content, I have trusted sources. I have about 10 friends that I send it to, and some of them are I know professionally. They're not necessarily my friends, but I trust them for my content edit. And then, you know, have you guys heard of Fiverr? Fiverr? Oh, Fiverr is a wonderful resource. So it's usually like $2,500 to get a good edit of your book. Shoot, I got one, a really good edit too. I had my friend read it just to see, $380 for my grammar edit of my book. So Fiverr is a wonderful resource. It's just individuals who want to do work. So you can get them to do your cover. You can get Fiverr folks to advertise for you. Fiverr is just a wonderful resource to just go and play around with, where you can get different parts of the services that you need. There's one woman on Fiverr who, and she gives an honest review, but I paid her $10 and she read the book and gave like a 30-minute audio review of it that she posts everywhere. And then I was able to take snippets of it, because nobody wants to hear 30 minutes. I was able to take snippets of it and use it in my marketing. So Fiverr is an absolutely wonderful resource. Did I answer your question? I know I kind of went far afield.
Yes, you did. You definitely did. Thank you so much.
And then there's a question in the chat. Did you interview an ER doc for the book? I wrote the book during the pandemic. So no, I didn't interview an ER doc. But what I did was, there is a lot of information on the internet about people's doctors' experiences with COVID. So I had a book from a gentleman in England who was an emergency room doctor. And then I had another book from a lady, a nurse, who left her hometown to go help out in New York. And they gave you just all the information you really needed. The internet's a wonderful thing, because I wrote my first book without the internet. And I was going to the library, I was interviewing people, but with the internet, you can just about find any type of information that you want. And then I did have people in the medical profession read the book before I published it to make sure that it was accurate. Oh, somebody found my Build stuff. Build is Blacks United in Leadership and Diversity, and it is the business resource group is what they call it for state employees. And so let me tell you something, and I'm the co-chair of Build for another week because we have elections coming up. But the governor came to our Build meeting, Governor Inslee, and we had someone there talking about how Juneteenth should be a holiday, and it influenced our governor. Guess what? Juneteenth is a holiday, and I really believe the genesis of that was from the governor coming to our Build resource group meeting. So I'm very proud to be a member of Build.
Great.
Oh, you guys are
Are you, Miss Edwina?
Huh?
Would you?
Yeah.
I've had the experiences with self-publishing and going with a publisher for the same reasons as I wanted it done my way. So to self-publish. If you had it to do over again, would you publish the same books the same way that you did, or would you, take maybe one or two that you took to the publishing houses and self-publish, or how would you do that?
I'm sorry. You got all the question out? I would not change my path because, frankly, being published by Harlequin legitimizes me, right? Because if Harlequin published me, well, darn it, she must be able to write. So that legitimizes me. And then I think makes my path of self-publishing easier. So no, I wouldn't change my path.
I had a question about the basketball. You said the editors removed most of it. And I know you wanted it in there because you put it in there, but what did you think about it after they removed it?
I had to take all emotion out of it. And I didn't read the book for about 5 years.
Oh.
But I still think my original version was stronger. Romance readers, everybody is multifaceted. And I had the basketball tie in with the romance, because the character was the coach. So the main character in the hero and the heroine had a relationship in high school. And then the hero goes off to college to play, and he doesn't think he can focus on basketball and have this intense love for her. So guess which one he gets rid of? He gets rid of her. So then he comes back. He's had a successful NBA career, and he's the coach at the equivalent of UW. And our heroine has had to raise her little brother. And so her little brother is the basketball star, and the hero is trying to recruit him to go to UW. So I had all of the basketball tie in with the romance, you know, but they still took it out. So
thank you.
The houses.
Isn't that Love and Basketball?
No, Love and Basketball is quite different.
Okay.
You want me to go through the storyline of Love and Basketball?
Well, I'm thinking that they don't have the audience. They didn't realize that people like to have a little bit of sport combined with the romance. So, yeah.
You know, one of my favorite movies is the Kevin Costner, where he's the pitcher.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, that movie?
Unfortunately, no.
Field of Dreams?
Huh?
Is that Field of Dreams?
Or Bull Durham?
Is it? It's the one where he meets the woman's car breaks down and he meets the woman and they have a relationship and then they break up. But then he's going through their whole relationship as he pitches through a game.
Oh.
And then by the end of it, he realizes how much he loves the woman, and he goes and makes it right with the woman. But it is it's a great movie, and I can't think of the name. I bet whoever's putting the stuff in the chat can Google it for me real quick. Kevin Costner and a baseball love story. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think people are multifaceted. They can have sports and their romance, and but you know, we're talking back in early 2000s where the Black romance was new. And so I think people wanted to really stick with what they thought would be successful.
Always that.
Along those lines, do you, in terms of
may I ask you, was this
cookie cutters and or not the cookie cutter, but for the publishing houses, you mentioned that they said, well, our genre has changed because it took you 14 years to get that second book to them. Do you feel like they were trying to make you fit? Did they look at your book unique as you as a writer? Or they were just trying to make you fit into what they offered, into their offering? And do you think that box has changed much?
Well, Harlequin's trying to make a buck.
Formula.
So they bought Arabesque because Arabesque was making plenty of bucks. So when they first bought my book, they were going to do whatever Arabesque had done. But now they had 14 years of intel. So they were going to put on their own spin on it, on what they thought was successful. But when I first was with them, they were just following the formula established by Arabesque. And this is Edwina Martin taking educated guesses. But that sounds reasonable to me because they didn't really touch house guests. You know, not that I remember. It was one of the least changes in editing.
Okay. Helen, do you still have
the
Oops, I'm sorry.
draft of your first one? Yeah. I want to ask her, do you still have a copy of your
my first version?
You know, even though they took it all out, you still have a copy of that where it's all in there. Yeah, what's in there.
Because we're talking like, 10 computers ago, and I remember my computer crashing and I lost quite a bit, but I have a lot of those CDs. You remember how you used to have the CDs and you put stuff on them? So I think I do have some of my books on those
yeah.
CDs.
Yeah, that matters. It does. I'm glad you're going to join.
For the love of the game. Yay.
Because we'll get to see you again and we'll get to talk more than we can now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would love to get a copy
of the recording if
that's possible. I'll put my email in the chat. I don't know.
Absolutely. And are you going to be able to read a little bit more?
Am I going to be able to do what?
Just another little snippet, maybe?
Okay. You guys want me to read some more? Do you want, I'll give you, we'll stick with Chocolate Friday if you don't mind, just because I know it so well. And we'll talk about one of the romantic scenes here. So my character is quirky. So for example, she has a problem falling asleep with someone else in her bed because she's never had anybody else in her bed. She's wondering if you'll see her drool or she'll pass gas, or, she's very concerned about those types of things. And this is the scene where she decides it really doesn't matter anymore. This is hot. You guys ready? Maybe, just maybe, waking up with another person isn't so bad, Olivia. I don't know how long he's been down there by the time I feel the tender, moist touches deep between my thighs. The profound tingling offers me no clue because it was already present when I slipped from unconscious to semi-conscious. However, I do know one thing. He's been there long enough to make me sopping wet. I can feel it running from my sex down my bottom to the sheet below. Holding back a moan, I crack an eye open to see the clock, realizing I have a whole hour before I have to get up. Shifting my gaze down, I see Andre. Andre is the government name of flavor. Shifting down, I see Andre totally engrossed in what he's doing. I can't see his mouth, but I can sure feel it. Feather soft touches of his tongue lick at the entrance to my body. Oh God, it's so decadent. This lovemaking before we washed off evidence and the odors of our last session, or even brushed our teeth. My lids close and I try to move as if I'm still asleep. But my real purpose is to give him greater access. I don't want him struggling to give me what I'm learning to crave. His tongue moves up and circles my nub once, and I groan and spread my legs wide. Forget acting or being coy. This is too delicious to be still. Eyes wide open, I meet his sultry gaze over the great divide of my breasts and slightly round belly, watching as he continues to move against me. It's like we're speaking in Morse code. You flick this way and I'll move that way. Keep the pressure there and I'll tremble until you free me. And release me he does into a world of blinding lights and endless jerks. When I come back to the reality of my bed, I see his smiling face coming up my body. And right before he kisses me, bringing all our funky odors fully together, he whispers, "Morning, babe."
Now I thought you said you didn't. What is erotica line then? That's not it.
Erotica, you would have that in the beginning of the book.
Oh.
To me, I have an established love story before you get into all of the good stuff that comes along with being in love. I consider making love an expression of being in love.
Most women do.
Yeah.
One of our flaws.
No, it's not your grandmother's romance novel. Check the books out. They're also available in audio. And then how do I become a member of the group? Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody's with their 91-year-old mother. They heard that reading.
That's
How did they get here?
Thank you for that reality check, Paul.
It's real.
You do it.
How do I become a member of the group?
For membership, we can.
All you got to do is
Miss
see
Margaret,
and
do you want to
she'll-
share with her, or we can send
Margaret.
you the link?
Why don't you do it, Noni? Because I can't remember. Yeah, do it. Because I know we go
We'll
to the
send you the membership link, and you can just fill that information out. And you don't have to be a member to join us for our Saturday meetings, but we would love you to be a member because we have some wonderful stuff coming up, and we'd like to include you in that. That'd be great.
Yes, I would love
Send
to.
it to your email that you sent, that info at Edwina Martin.
I'd love to connect with other people who are writing.
Yes.
My own area. That would be a dream come true.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you. Any more questions or comments?
Yeah, I would love it too. The only thing I want to say, I love the way you speak of Seattle, the Northwest, and us being a part, and you being a writer of that of this area, and we after that African American Rights Alliance are also. So it will just and be much better for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I tell you, Seattle has such a rich history. I've never written a historical, but I'm getting the urge to write a historical using some of the Seattle history. Maybe one of the Bushes, George Washington, and they're both George Washington Bush, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Noni? You're
good.
Miss Margaret, you had a question.
I was going to say a similar thing. I like how you notice that when you're looking at the neighborhoods in the Northwest, it is mainly the Scandinavian, the fishermen and all that, but not necessarily us. So I'm so glad that you have written your books, especially Chocolate Friday, and I can't wait to read the whole thing. In fact, I was going to ask you to read another excerpt. That's why I loved it.
You want another one from Chocolate, or you want me to go?
Yeah, whichever one you think. Yeah.
Somebody else had a question. There were 2 or 3 people who spoke at the same time. You want to hold your question, or okay?
Oh, I put mine in the chat. List about your next book, but we can do that after you read.
Okay. Well, I'll answer it real quick. So my next book is going to be Chocolate with the L-I-T.
All right.
My husband came to me and said, Edwina, you have to name your next book Chocolate. So I said, cool, I will. So this is a completely different type of reading. I wanted to set up some of the character issues with the heroine. And rather than me trying to describe them, I decided to do a prologue that gives you what her issues are up front and center in the book. Okay? So this is Las Vegas. This is Chocolate Drop. And this is the love in the time of Corona. And so we're in Las Vegas, Nevada, 1998. The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. I whip my head around knowing the references to me and my skin color. I managed to hold my lunch tray with one hand as I run the other down my neck, thinking, how dare Jerome come out in the middle of the crowded, or call me out in the middle of a crowded lunchroom of all places. Usually he shouts at me in the hallways or from the front lawn of our middle school as I make my way home. If he were closer and not surrounded by the whole basketball team and their groupies, I would smack him upside his head. Instead, I glare at him and he smiles wider and blows me a kiss. The nerve of that boy. My girlfriend snicker along with everyone else as we make our way to our usual table. Traitors, I think. Maria Adrian Anderson, he is kind of cute, even if he is immature, and he was voted Player of the Week for the 30 points he scored a couple of nights ago. He thinks he's the player of the century. My friends laugh, but I'm on a roll. Ingrid, I don't like being embarrassed, and that's something he does a lot. We're in 8th grade. Next year we'll be in high school, and he acts like we're in kindergarten with these corny lines. I roll my eyes for effect, and my crew laughs harder. Turning to my best friend and almost hitting her with my tray, I say, and why are you using my full name, Ingrid Imogen Russell? I could call you Ma. She gives me a light shoulder bump as we sit down next to each other. You know, for your initials and the fact that you're such a sophisticated, mature lady. Before I can reply, Tanya says around her milk mustache, I like Ma, and we'll call you Ingrid, because you're just so Shut up, Ingrid and I say in unison before we all start giggling. I take a bite of my Salisbury steak dipped in mashed potatoes and wish I'd listened to my mother and packed a lunch. Also, against my mother's advice, I'd run out of the house without breakfast, so I was starving. I eat the less than appealing lunch with gusto. You skipped the most important meal of the day again, didn't you? Ingrid smirks. I fling a tiny bit of the mashed potato at her and it lands on her chin. Hey, she protests, no need to get violent. I wipe her chin. Sorry, I say, although I'm not the least bit contrite. A word I'm trying out because I know it will be on our next English test. No more food throwing, Tanya looks at me sternly before adding, but we can throw napkins. She tosses hers in my direction and giggles. I swat it away before playfully shaking my fist at her. By the time I'm walking home a few hours later, I have forgotten all about Jerome and his silly shouting. That is until I hear, hey, wait up. It's blistering hot in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I just want to get home to the air conditioning. I don't want to be bothered by Jerome's nonsense. I look behind and see him running my way. I walk faster, but of course he catches up, being the superb athlete that he is. Don't you have practice, I say, as he walks in the grass beside me. The sidewalk is narrow. He's wearing shorts and a t-shirt, not the jeans he had on at lunch. Yes, you're worth being late for. Besides, I'm a star. I snort at that and he laughs before saying, Hold up a second. I stop walking and face him. I was serious about the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. I bet your juice is delicious. Oh, gross. I push him. Don't be like that. I'm serious, he says. Eyes lowered, slight smile on his face, and what I'm sure he thinks is his googly-eyed, sexy look. I stare at him and say, if you are serious, you need better lines. Have you bothered listening to the whole Tupac song? What's the second line? He shrugs. It's the darker the flesh, then the deeper the roots. And he says, confusion marring his light brown skin and shining through his green eyes. Complimenting my roots and not my juice would be a much better thing to say to me. Even Tupac got that. I turn and begin walking away. You're just a dumb black bitch, and you're lucky I even bother with you. I walk faster and I don't look back, but his words sting, and I feel water pulling in my eyes. I don't hear his footsteps behind me, yet I still break into a light run because he's yelling. Your hair is nappy. Have you heard of a perm? I resist the urge to touch my hair that's plaited into 2 long French braids. It flaps against my back as I move faster, trying to outrun his hateful words. When I reach my front door, the water I've been trying to hold back spills from my eyes. I enter the living room crying and gasping. I don't notice my father and my little brother Thomas, who is sitting on the couch, until my dad speaks. Why are you upset? Do you already know? My dad's sitting, yet he's so tall, our eyes are level. I don't answer because I'm shocked, wondering why tears are streaming down his face, wetting the piece of paper he's holding in his fist. Tommy's head is in his hands. He's not making noise, but his body is shaking. Dad stands and hugs me. I wrap my arms around his waist and press my cheek into his stomach, thoroughly confused. I cried harder because I can feel his body shake with emotion. I don't know what's wrong, but I've never seen my father cry. Even when he was in the hospital with a broken body after the construction accident, I didn't see him shed a tear. My mom sure cried, in the hospital, at home, and all night. Our walls were thin enough for me to hear her in the bedroom. Sometimes Tommy and I would go in and sit with her. She didn't say anything, just held us and shook more. But Dad is all better now. He has a slight limp and metal plates everywhere, but he's back at work, operating the big cranes that look like dinosaurs to me. Where's Mom? I mutter when he leans away and looks in my face. With an anguished look, he pulls me to him and heaves some more. Panic rises in me like a tidal wave, threatening to swallow me whole. Finally, he whispers, she's gone. I don't understand. He hands me the slip of paper he's still holding. I don't take it right away because Tommy is mewling now like our cat does when she's in heat. He's rocking back and forth with his eyes closed and his arms wrapped around his waist. Here, my dad says. I take the paper and he goes to kneel before my brother, taking him in his arms. I read it, then I run to my parents' room. I pull out drawers and look in her closet. They're empty. All her clothes are gone. I run to the hall closet. Her shoes are gone. Same thing in my parents' bedroom. I'm running back through the living room when my dad grabs me around the waist and pulls me into his warmth. She's gone, baby. She's gone. It's just me, you, and Tommy now. So that's the prologue. And you understand her issues with her skin color. She's very exotic looking. So people either think she's beautiful or they think she's ugly. There's no real middle in between. And her mother is a Sudanese refugee. I don't want to give away the whole story of the book, but she was held in a rape camp. And so when she got back to her village, she was ostracized. So missionaries helped her get to America. There's that deep hurt in the family. And the heroine doesn't find that out till later on. But anyway, you see how the prologue sets up a lot of stuff that I don't have to explain later.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Are there more questions?
Yeah, it's
I'm
a completely
so
different reading than the other stuff.
Okay. Any more questions? You want to get this out?
Well, I like to say that prologue, that was Vanilla Drop, you said?
Chocolate Drop.
Chocolate Drop. Yeah, I got to read that. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And that's her name. Her mother was Chocolate, her nickname. Her mother was chocolate, and so she was chocolate drop.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I like all my books, but this one is something special.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I want to say I've never been a romance novelist or a reader of romance novels, but I'm definitely going to have to get your book. And this keeps happening. I was not a sci-fi reader, and I, you know, read Helen's book. And so it's like keep getting exposed to this.
Yeah.
I wish that I look forward to the day when our young people can experience this literature in their schools at young ages so that they can develop a like and a love for our stories. I just love this. So thank you.
Thank you. And that reminds me, my cousin is in the arts, and she's very strange, but you know, artistic people are strange. Some people probably say I'm strange. But I was with her, and I was like 14 years old, and I said, I don't read poetry. And she said, oh, you just haven't been reading the right poetry. And she brought me Ain't I a Woman? Who wrote that? My mind's going blank. But she brought me that type of poetry, and I was like, oh, wow, I guess I do like poetry.
Yeah.
So your story reminds me of that.
Thank you. Thank you. Once again, I hope some of you remember, that's why I keep calling my poetry books Outside the Cave. Until we've been exposed, we really ought not say whether we do or we don't like it. And so we have not had anybody do a romance in that sense. Helen had something like that, I guess, in some of her books. But a book that's categorized as romance, we just don't. So it's just nice to have it out there. It's nice for people to know that it exists. There's just no category of writing that I'm going to say, oh, don't do that, or don't, you know, you just, but I did the romance novels probably between about 13 and 15, you know, in those magazines, those modern romance, or the books that your mom didn't see you reading or whatever. So I did all of that. And I know that's not the kind of writing, you know, that I want to do. But I mean, the first time, well, I met you and I saw the book, read the book, and oh, this is really, really good. So when I was checking and I saw how many you've written, I'm just very, very happy, very happy. And I'm guessing there are some more people out there, but I don't happen to know any of them. But I'm just glad, and maybe you'll encourage some of us to write more. But we do stories and we do poems here. And when I say, well, it's this month, so we're going to do this. And June is just full of stuff. Flag Day is tomorrow, and you know we can do all kinds of things with that flag, right? Okay. And then Father's Day, and some of us were blessed to have really good fathers, and some of us were not blessed in that particular way, so we can have Father's Day poems. But I checked, and I think it's Hunger Awareness Month, and it's Turkey Lovers Month, and I know it's Memory Month. I have some friends who have Alzheimer's, and I've been reminded of that. So anything goes, anything goes. And I know Margaret and Helen are reading. Anybody else? Jay, are you reading? Noni, are you reading? Trying to get a little list here so we don't have to spend any time waiting. I want to get in as much reading as we possibly can. So.
And Isom, are you reading?
I'd like to read something.
Okay.
It's hard to hear you too, just FYI, when you do get ready to read.
Yeah, I really think you're probably too far from the computer, from just looking at. Okay, but Isom's gonna be there, and I have Margaret and Helen, and Noni is thinking about it. Jay, are you reading? Okay, all right, let's go. Margaret, why don't you start for us? Thank you. Unmute. Margaret, you have to
Unmute. I see it.
Okay.
I was pulling up my paper. Okay. I have two short poems.
Okay.
And I'm just going to read the first one first, called Kindergarten. First day of school, I gaze at my classmates. We seem different. We open our mouths. It called like a love song to my ears. We proclaimed equal. Kindergarten. Kindergarten. Okay, and the other one is a love poem called True Love. Night before, he poured water into the plug-in vessel, dropped leaves in the teapot. The next morning, she flipped switch, heated the water, set cups for two. True love. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Helen.
Thank you.
Helen.
Okay, I'm here. I'm gonna share with you a play from a short story I wrote called Uncle Willie USA. I do write romance, deep romance. However, I write science fiction is my passion, and so this is year 1940. There are 7 characters in this play: Willie, the African American blacksmith, his 2 white male customers, Lily, his girlfriend, Les, the man she later marries, and the mailman. The play takes place in Willie's blacksmith shop. Willie was a colored man around 35 or 40 years of age. He wore a 3-inch beard he kept neatly trimmed. Though his head was bald at 6 feet, thought him a handsome-looking gentleman. One particular lady held his attention until she grew tired of waiting for him to ask her to marry him. Turned out he was the best man at her wedding. Most white people said Willie was a Nat Turner type when they spoke of him. He lived in a southern town. Yes?
We're having a hard time hearing you. You're going in and out. Yeah. I don't know what to do. Does anybody know what to do?
It's usually a big issue. So
Okay,
if we can turn off our video cameras while Helen reads.
Usually a what?
Help.
If all of us go to mute, but Helen.
No, if we all turn off our videos while Helen reads, that might help the bandwidth.
Okay, let's see.
And Helen, even you could try turning off
Really
the camera too.
And Helen, slow down, slow down.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Willie was a colored man around 35 or 40 years of age. He wore a 3-inch beard he kept neatly trimmed. Though his head was bald, at 3 feet tall, most of the ladies thought him a handsome-looking gentleman. A particular lady held his attention until she grew tired of waiting for him to ask her to marry him. Turns out he was the best man at her wedding. Most white people said Willie was a Nat Turner type when they spoke of him. He lived in a southern town where white folks told black folks what to do, all except Willie. No one could tell Willie what to do. And since Willie's mother was said to put spells and hex on folks, most left Willie alone. Even the white people didn't want to get that woman riled up. It was also claimed that Klansmen killed his father, who had been a blacksmith. What happened to the town afterward? Let its white citizens know Willie's mother didn't take kindly to what they did to her husband. Willie was 10 when his father was murdered. Now he was the only blacksmith in town. He only shoed horses for black folks until the white folks saw how good he was. They decided to have him shoe their horses. The first act takes place in his blacksmith shop. Wearing a thick black apron and thick black gloves, he stood inside with a mask covering his eyes, hammering a piece of hot steel. There are 3 characters in this scene: Willie and 2 white men. The first white man walks into Willie's shop. White man: Willie, I come to have you shoe my horse. That'll be $5, Willie said, and continued to hammer on the hot steel, not looking at the white man. I ain't paying no $5 to no nigga to shoe my horse. there's a blacksmith up in Redbird, Shoe Horses. You best go see him. That's 40 miles up the road. The man placed his hand against his white chin when Willie kept hammering. That cracker wants $10 to shoe a horse. The white man looks at Willie, waiting for him to say something. Getting no response, he reached into his pocket and pulled out $5 and tossed the money on the floor. Redbird is the best place for you to go. You get the best service there, I'm thinking. You can give that white man his money in his hand. Willie pounded harder on the hot steel, never looking at the white man who stood staring at him. Finally, the man took a deep breath, picked up the money, and handed it to Willie. Willie takes off his glove and takes the money, looking him straight in the face, never saying a word. The second scene, the first white man approaches another white man as he leaves Willie's shop. If you come to get your horseshoe, it's going to be $5, boy. You know I ain't gonna pay no nigga no $5 to shoe my horse. Yeah, you is if you don't want to ride all the way to Redbird and pay 10. Both men looked at Willie. The second white man grabbed his chin as though thinking as he shakes his head. He says, say, let me have $4 till I get back to the store. Give it back to you then. The first white man reached into his pocket, giving him the money, then tapped him on the shoulder. The second white man looked back at him. Don't let that money hit the floor. That uppity nigga won't touch it. He better be glad he's the only blacksmith in town, or we'll let the Klan handle him. Niggas getting beside himself, but I ain't aiming to have no trouble with either. You know what happened when the Klan killed her old man? She must have called 3 tornadoes to come through here back to back, nearly tore up the town. Them that done the killing died before the last one come through. The second man looked at the money in his hand, shook his head as he walked in and handed Willie the $5. Willie was in the shop working when in walks a young lady named Lily, carrying a covered dish. Her skin has been lightened by some white man's seed, as well as her curly brown hair showing under the blue-white hat on her head. It accented her blue and white two-piece suit she's wearing. Lily smiles at Willie. He smiles back, quickly pulling up a chair for her. Who is this I'm pleased to see bringing me some of her good cooking? Willie takes a seat beside her. She turns to him and hands him the covered plate of food. Now, Willie, I ain't aiming to be no Spencer waiting on no man to marry me. I'm told I ain't no ugly woman, and you sure seem to like my cooking. She smiles over at him as he peeps under the cover of the plate she has given him. That showed the truth. Fact being, you're one of the nicest looking women around here, I believe. Well, I'm mighty proud to hear you say that, and so that you know, Lester Ross has asked me for my hand in marriage. I think 2 years is long enough to wait for a man to propose to you. Wouldn't you say so? Willie rises from his seat, shaking his head. He looked down at Lily and frowned in his face. Lily, if I was to marry you, I'd have to worry day and night trying to figure out how to protect you and me, not to mention the babies we'd have. Lily stands up, a disturbed look on her face. Why, Lily, you're as big as any man around here, and just as strong. Being a blacksmith and all, I do believe you are torn with my affections. She looked down at the plate of food she brought to him, shaking her head, and walked out the door. A year and a half later, Lily and a nice-looking black man around Willie's age walks into his shop. The man is wearing overalls. Lily is holding a small baby in a blanket. The man has his arm tight around her shoulder. Willie stopped hammering and looked at the three. It was just a little while ago, he was the best man at their wedding. He had been asked to be the baby's godson soon as it was born. I ain't seen you two since the baby was born. What got you coming in here looking so down in the middle of the day when you should be tending to each other and that nice farm and those cattle you bring bragging about, Lester? Lily began to sob in the blanket she's holding the baby in. Lester lowers her into a chair Willie offers. He takes a deep breath as he looks around as if to make sure no one else is inside. He then slowly takes the chair Willie offers him. Late one night, right after Lester Jr. was about 2 months old, we woke up to the banging on the front door. I hurried to see what was the matter. Lester stopped talking, gets up and walks out the door, looking both ways. Chef sits, come back in and takes his seat again. Lily continues to cry. Chef Hatman was at our door, talking about I need to go see about my cow that had got loose. I jumps in my pants and run out to the barn looking all over the place. I shook my head. Every cow was in a stall. I ran back to the house to let him know he was mistaken. Lester shook his head as tears rolled down his eyes. That bastard was in my bed having Lily while she was laying there crying. Lester Jr. was crying. When I went to grab him, he grabbed his gun. He had laying beside him on the bed, kept right on doing his business till he was done. Got up and told me if I wanted Lester Jr. to grow up and be a man, I better let him in every time he come, and he planned for it to be often. He didn't mind sharing Lily with me, he said. He had been wanting her a long time, and he planned to keep on having her until her now that he had a nigger to father any baby she had. Bastard been coming 4 or 5 times a week for about a month. Lily is a broken woman these days. She feels bad, and I can't protect her because of what might happen to Lester Jr. Willie rose and began to pound on the hot steel he held as Lily and Lester sat crying. You take Lily and Lester Jr. to my house. Mama will be there. Wait for me. I'll be on directly. Lester took Lily, who never looked at him, just kept crying while she held tight to little Lester Jr., walking with Lester out the door. Act 5. Willie was just finishing his lunch and was about to continue working when the mailman walks into his shop. It was hot that day. Willie took a seat as he accepted the letter the mailman handed him. He and Willie had known each other for a long time. He smiles, taking the seat Willie offers him as he wiped sweat from his brow. Man, did you hear what happened to that dirty, low-down Chef Hatsman? He didn't wait for Willie to answer as he lowered his voice. I heard it said that some white folks found him wandering around uptown, naked as a jailbird, talking to himself. They had to take him down to Huntersville to that crazy house. No one seems to know what caused it. Some of us is glad, though, many of our people he has sent to the pen for nothing. He's the big chef in town. Hey, white folks, I reckon. Glad he gone, the postman said. Sorry he stayed so long. Good riddance. He rose, wiped his head, a smile lit up his face. He walked out of Willie's shop as he shakes his head. Willie closed the door to his shop, takes a seat, opened the letter the postman has given him, and began to read. Hey, Willie, man. The letter's from Lester. I sure thank your mama for that pouch she gave to Lily. It worked like a charm. When Sheriff Hammond brought his ass to the house that night, me and Lily lay waiting for him. Soon as he got naked, Lily turned the lights off and let him crawl right in bed with her. She opened that pouch and laid his pole right inside of it. That cracker jumped up out of our bed like a streak of lightning had hit him. I heard him hollering loud as a bear as he run down the road. Couldn't see nothing but his naked white ass in the dark. Left his gun, clothes, and all right there next to the bed. He didn't come back neither. I decided to sell the farm. Got us a better place up here in Mobile. I didn't understand what you meant when you told me it was too hard trying to protect the family down here where the law don't work for us. Told me that right before Lily and me got married. Now that I realize what you meant, I think I'll be raising my son to understand the same. Willie rises and tosses the letter into the hot flames and watch it turn to black smoke. He then put on his face mask, apron, and gloves, and began again to hammer the hot steel before him. The curtains closed. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Wonderful.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you, Helen.
Good, good, good.
Did you hear me better?
Okay. Now I was trying to figure out how many more. Paul, are you going to read? Okay. I just have Isom, Noni, Jay, you were Kabibi, you gonna read something for us? I was trying to get a list before we started.
Jay left and came back in. Hopefully her.
I know, but she wasn't here when I asked. Jay, are you reading?
Oh, it's working great now. No, I won't be reading. Thank you so much.
All right.
I won't either.
Who
Georgia,
was
this is
that?
Judy.
Hi, Nana Kabibi.
Hi, sweetheart. Hello, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Hello. Noni, you aren't gonna read?
Happy to read when we go through everyone that's ready. I think it's ready. Mhm.
Isom? Are you reading, Isom? You guys, we're recording, remember? We wanted
Isom, you're muted.
make it seamless if possible.
There we go.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes.
Please read.
This first one is a reading about the real Juneteenth. When did slavery really end in America? What and where are the last vestiges of this heinous behavior of servitude of one human over another? Did old President Lincoln really free the slaves? Did a constitutional amendment really get executed and administered? When did slavery end in America? If you were born by 1995, at the reading of this writing, slavery was still in the books in these here United States of America. Even though the 13th Amendment was adopted in December of 1865, with 3/4 of the required existing 36 US states that voted in favor of ratification, records show an asterisk in the column for approval from the great state of Mississippi's ratification, which was a holdout. There are lots of questions to be addressed about this issue and Blacks in America. Was it just an administrative mistake? Was it a loophole or more devious? The real question to me has always been, why did Mississippi ratify the 13th Amendment? Back in the day, it was clear that the great state of Mississippi was a holdout from both congressional records and public information. This act by the great state of Mississippi caused a stir at the time as state legislators were mad that they couldn't receive value for their slaves. This same feverish move radiated to Washington, D.C., with the state's congressional delegation and political power wielding cotton growers. Was it a loophole? The lack of submission of state constitutionally certified documents for the 13th Amendment back in 1865? There are many who hold to the notion that Mississippi benefited from the any given Sunday rule, where Blacks were fair game for human captivity under the state-sanctioned absurdities. Some say that the great state of Mississippi grew a prison labor industry under the loophole, except as punishable for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, clause of the 13th Amendment, as it hid behind the lack of abolishing the same constitutional document that stood for it. The state of Mississippi has grown this loophole to help pave the way for the U.S. Black American encrusted prison labor system into the world's largest prison population to 2.3 million incarcerated people today. Now here come old Mississippi in the 13th Amendment finish line at 130 years snail pace on top of an old tortoise. It's a good thing that the world has changed and Mississippi too. Even though there are great pockets of hate that still exist there, the state now hosts federal, state, and local elected officials, as well as Blacks in public jobs and working as private officers. Blacks and whites even mingle in open space and inside homes. Thanks, Mississippi, for abolishing slavery in the US in my lifetime. That was the real Juneteenth. This is called Ain't I American Too? Tracks that squash away with each wave was paid to this land. Like bundles we came, child, woman, and man. Ain't I American? The path of cotton fibers breathed in the mind. For half a millennium helped shape this place. We fit in the works of the mix with every other race. Ain't I American? Legislated out of the mainstream, beaten off the sideline, contributions like a light beam, always fighting to relieve social bonds. Ain't I American too? Painting this land's future with works of our new lives, shaping in chance situation that seems to cut like knives. Ain't I American like you? Barely fitting in and never really getting in. Even the legal laws move with a hand for us to bend. Ain't I American, my friend? Always facing the blues as I try to get to schools with no shoes, educated with books that even exclude. Ain't I American, or is it news? We've expanded technology and you give us dirt. We take our money to the lunar surface, leaving us here on this earth. Ain't I American by birth? Tracks that squash away with each wave was our path to this land. Like bundles we came, child, woman, and man. Ain't I American too? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to miss anybody. Thank you. Did you have a question, Edwina? Oh, you're just clapping. Okay. All right. Nona, you gonna read yours?
It looks like Nana Kabibi has a question.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have a question. I was applauding.
Yeah.
Oh,
right
okay. Let me lower the hand. Then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh,
I can read, Miss Georgia.
okay. Thank you.
Since there's a lot going on this month, this gets to fall into the everything else category. Okay. The title of this is called Crown.
It's called what?
Crown.
Okay.
She walks in the room, barely able to contain her excitement. At least 1 million hours have been spent preparing for this amazing moment, including a variety of learning, such as crawling, walking, and running. She learned letters and words, numbers and counting, also language, both verbal and nonverbal, even how to play, use her imagination, make new friends, and care for her pet turtle. Bubbling with wonder, she stands in the doorway and waves goodbye. Her posture upright, her shoulders relaxed, her crown straight. The first day of school ensues. She approaches an enormous building, the biggest, and searches for something spectacular, but doesn't find it. It's unclear where she should enter. All of the doors look the same. She's a bit confused and tilts her head in uncertainty. Her crown shifts. She finally picks a door and enters. There are people everywhere, kids and adults. Everyone is busy with activity, but moving too fast to see their eyes. She thinks that maybe she entered the wrong door and does not feel like she belongs here. Her shoulders become tense. Her chin drops. Her crown moves. She searches for the classroom that matches the number on her paper. Once inside, she looks around to find one teacher and many students. Nearly everything is beige. If not the walls, then the people on the walls. And then she hears, "Class, my name is Teacher. Remove your identity and place your personality in the basket on my desk. You will get them back after class." She does as instructed and removes her crown and places her other jewels in the basket on Teacher's desk. She intends to ask her family about this tonight. She has worn her crown since birth, and it is never to be removed. The day seems to get longer and longer with unanswered questions. The morning's joy and excitement is now idle boredom. After some time, a bell signals the end of the day. Teacher says, "All right, class, great job. See you all tomorrow." She returns to get her crown, but it is no longer there. Her crown and jewels are not returned. She holds back with what she can, but a single tear escapes and runs down her face. Her shoulders are tight. Her head is down. Her crown is misplaced, or worse, lost. When she arrives home, her family struggles to recognize her at first. They inquire, "Where is your crown?" She cannot express. The upset is so great that she runs to her bedroom. Every wall in her room is covered with photos of her in her crown. Day after day, she returns to school and her crown is nowhere. Not on Teacher's desk and not on a shelf. Not in any classroom or office. She has searched everywhere and feels like the building and every room in it is getting smaller. Tears well up in her eyes, then run down her face. This continues for some time. Then one day, she forgets and stops looking. She no longer thinks of her crown, and her family has stopped asking her about it. Every morning she enters, and every afternoon she exits from this shrinking building with its shrinking rooms. Every morning she wake up, and every afternoon she wake up. From the shrinking building, wake up, wake up, wake up. Young queen, wake up. You don't want to be late for your first day of school. Oh, mama, I had a bad dream. It will be just fine. I have already been to your school and met with your teachers. They cannot wait to see you. Now get yourself ready and I'll meet you downstairs. It seemed like only a few minutes and then, "I'm ready," was announced to the entire house. Wow, you sure are. Do you have your book bag? Check. And your lunch? Check. I want a photo before you leave. Bubbling with wonder, she stands in the doorway, her posture upright, her shoulders relaxed. Then with an excited smile on her face, she straightens her crown.
Thank you.
The end.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to know the origin, but I'll leave the origin alone. Anybody else? Okay, I have one. I started to give some background, but I won't. Maybe two. And this one is just called The Interview. I saw your watery eyes. I saw how you attempted to hold back the tears. I thought you did not want me to see, and I tried not to see. I don't want anyone to see. No, the frustration can make me cry. I thought perhaps you felt the same. I did nothing because I did not know what to do. I had never seen anyone cry for me in my situation. I wanted to cry for your tears. I could not see how crying would help. I really wanted neither of us to cry. I admit tears come as I try to capture the brief time. we had a job to do. Two women, one Japanese, one Black, both Americans in the only home they know, have ever known, sharing their separate pain, yet realizing someone of a different heritage understood. So slavery was worse. Internment was neither camp nor vacation. Descendants continue, not always preoccupied with the injustice, but occasionally sharing a story, a repercussion of the inequality that in various ways makes all Americans smaller. Okay. I wrote this one in 2016, and I had not spoken with the person that inspired it in a very long time. And then yesterday I did, and I just opened the book and it came to this poem. So I thought, well, I'm supposed to read this poem, okay? And I'll read one more short one. And this one is called Protection Nullified. And well, as I said earlier, some of you got that article about the backlash with 1619 and anti-racism. I wasn't surprised when I got the article. I think I was surprised to see it printed. I knew the backlash was there, but to see it printed in something as prominent as the Washington Post really encourages me, because I think it's platforms like that that have to be out there. I can do just so much, but the Post can do much, much more. So I call this one Protection Nullified. And I wrote it in 2001. That's one of the things that surprises me about some of my poetry. And then I laugh because other people wrote 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and it says true today as it was then. When I was a little girl, I learned our government protects us. When I was an older girl, I learned the government does not protect all of us equally. When I was a teenager, I learned the government doesn't always protect us. As a mature woman, I know for a fact that our government protects some people much more than it protects other people. Today, despite what the government says, I know its ability to protect us is limited. I hate to admit there are times the government can't protect us. And worse, there are times when the government does not protect the most vulnerable among us. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. This, I guess people can always say, this is a wonderful time to be alive. You know, I'm not going to say it was the best of times and the worst of times, but it's a very, very interesting, and I mean that positively, time to be alive. It's just that we have so much to do. There's no time to rest or rest very long, because we do have to be rejuvenated. But it's 3:50, so we have about 10 minutes. If anybody wants to read something else or ask questions, make comments or whatever, it's been good. You know, if we had 50 people, I would probably always say I wish more would come. So don't mind me, but I'm so glad that you came, and I'm glad that all of you shared. So any questions or comments?
Georgia, I read that article you just mentioned, not in the Washington Post, but the Guardian today. It was in the Guardian too.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. I read it. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I sent it to a lot of people. I don't know. I said, okay. Thank you. Correct.
Yeah.
Your hand was up. Did you want to say something else about it, Margaret?
No, not about that. No, I just want to say this was beautiful. Today was beautiful. I love our guest, Edwina, and I'm glad she's going to be a member. And I just love her stories. I got to get her book. I just love stories too. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Isa.
Yes, I wanted to say, Lady Edwina, thank you for coming in your soft romance. It wasn't erotica, but of your three that you did read, I'd go back to them take your first one where them being the house, taking away your connection and with the Seattle Garfield and Rainier Beach competition. With your coaching background and the love of Seattle that you try and bring, I see that too as that's something harsh that I think I would have ran to Amazon to self-publish. But thank you for sharing both your readings and that bit of the story behind the print.
You're most welcome. And thank you for, I'm so happy that this group exists. I mean, I've been writing since the late 90s, and this is the first time I found an organized group consisting of Black writers. So I'm tickled pink to be a part of it. So thank you as well.
Thank you. Well, all of us are responsible for spreading the word.
And I'd like to say also.
Go on.
Thank you for coming. And I thank you for coming. And when I think about the tragedy of this person's deciding that you should not incorporate your love of sport with a romance, with a love affair, it just breaks my heart, because when I wrote my trilogy, which took me 30 years, the Miss Anna trilogy, the connection with horse racing, the male was owned horses, and she was just a young Black girl living in a little city, and they by chance they met, but that his what he loved and her passion collided. I mean, we're together, and it brought back a absolute beautiful story, and I can imagine the love of basketball would have thrived in your story.
Yeah.
Don't ever let anyone take your joy.
And you know,
so much of it in your
Thank
life.
you. And they didn't.
I should read your book, and you should read mine.
I agree. We should all read each other's work.
You were going to say something, Edwina?
Pardon?
Oh, I thought you were going to say
amazing.
something.
You know.
You were going to say. I thought you were going to say something about.
Oh yeah, just in defense of the publisher, they took out 80%, so they did leave a little bit in there. Mm-hmm. Not much.
Well, I think what we ought always remember. What we ought always remember is when it comes to corporations, be they big or small, it's always the money. I mean, it's just always the money. And you said they have a formula, and they have that formula because it works. And that's what they'll keep using it until you come up with another one. And for me, that's why it's so important that we publish our work. I was not exaggerating when I made the comment about Harlem Renaissance, because it's so much easier for us to get work out there now than it was once upon a time. And although it may be difficult now, it's still easier because I don't have to wait for Harlequin or Random House or you name them. We don't have. Of course, it would be good, and of course, we'd have larger bank accounts or whatever. But right now, I'm at the point where we have to get the stories out there. If we can get the stories out there, then we'll have more people who understand. We'll have more people who support. But if we don't get the stories out there, then I don't want to say they'll be lost, but you know, some of them will be lost. And the more we write, the better. And
they will
I
be
want
lost.
all of us to have bestsellers, you know, but maybe we're helping other people get the bestsellers. We're just doing our part.
What irritates me even more than them being lost is you have somebody who comes along and reads your work and rebrand it.
Yes,
theirs.
That happens all the time.
So you're absolutely right. Getting it out there and getting credit where credit is due.
Yeah, because it makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel comfortable. Yes.
Yeah, we have.
It's better sometimes to be uncomfortable. I'm
yeah,
sure
what happens when
Make
you're
them
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
Hey, you just have to know that's our story.
Several people were saying something at the same time, and I don't know. Ison, what did you say?
I said, make them uncomfortable, Helen.
Okay, and Helen said,
make them uncomfortable.
But you said something else.
Make them uncomfortable.
Okay. All right.
Whether they like what you say, I said, we have to do it. We have to do it. If we don't do it, there's no one going to do it for us. When I wrote Willie the Blacksmith, it was important to me because it radiated something within me that was happened in my culture, even if it was in the past, that was important to be known. I don't expect white people to like everything I do. I just want to make them uncomfortable to understand that it's important that I do what I do.
Yeah, and that's what's behind all of us telling all of the stories. Noni, is your hand up?
Yes, for Miss Edwina, have any of your athletes read your work and talked and mentioned it to you? How fun is that, or uncomfortable?
Oh man, well, I tell them that my stories are adult, but it's a love story and it's an expression of people being in love. Not my basketball players, but my kids. I have 3 kids. Their ages are 29, 27, and 24. I think the oldest one read half a book and she said she just couldn't take it. She couldn't get the picture of me out of her mind. So my children don't read my books. Let me tell you a really quick funny story. So I do a lot of grassroots book signings. So like say Noni would host a book signing for me and I would go to Noni's house and Noni would get her friends together. So I was doing one of those and this old lady, she was about 90, raised her hand and said, "Your aunt said you write dirty books." And it turns out I was related to her and I didn't know. And so, but anyway, my aunt Helen had called her and said, "Read her books, they're dirty." So, but what do you say when a 90-year-old says, "Your aunt says you write dirty books"?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I said. And she said, "I like it."
No.
Oh, funny.
Oh, I will never forget that story. Never forget that experience.
That's great.
Say yes, ma'am. And,
I was shocked into silence.
All right. If nobody has any questions or comments, I want to thank you once again for coming. And I want to thank all of the persons who read and everybody who showed up, period. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the
Georgia.
Good rest of the life. Okay.
Thank you.
Till we meet again.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
And we did say the meetings, we meet on the first Saturday, but you'll go to the website and check out our website and you'll get all that information and you're certainly welcome to contact me. Well, you have my email, I know, but.
I've done everything but paid the dues while we were on this call.
Oh my God.
I want the prorated
button. There is
a prorated version of the dues.
All right. Thank you. I'm glad you found us. And I don't know why it took so long, because I know if you put African-American or Black writers in the browser, we come up. And I've been trying. I don't think there is another group. I know that's why this group was started, because there was no group. And we've been around since 1991. And I don't think there's another group. I know there are writers who, of course, know about us and are not members of the group, but I don't know I don't know of another group. So we want to keep this going.
You know, and I never did a search. I guess I was relying on word of mouth.
Oh yeah.
So that's on.
I tell people Siri knows everything. I
Yeah.
put it in the browser. And all of my years of asking the computer a question, the only question it did not answer, and this was several years ago, was how many Black persons have been killed by the police. They kept no record of it. Only recently that's the only question I have ever asked you know, when Siri says, I'm on it, I just laugh. You know, I don't hear Siri saying, I'm on it. When I ask that question, you know, but that's the only question I have ever asked. And they could not. They might say, well, this says 38, but that says 42, but they have an answer. But when I ask that question, don't have an answer. You know, they just put it in there, and you should put your name in the browser, you know, and see what comes up. Put our name, you know. It's just really interesting. It's interesting. You can learn a lot. You may not use some of this stuff, but at least you know it's out there. You can use it. Okay. As I said, have a good rest of the day, and thank you very much.
One day we shall meet.
Okay. One day what? Did you say one day what? We'll meet. Is that what you said? I didn't hear. I thought you said something, Helen. Okay.
I think Helen's frozen.
Okay. All right. You guys have a good
Bye.